In other words, the meaning of it is purity in terms of mind is simply for the sake of purity in terms of view. So this is the topic. This is the phrase that we took even last time for the discussion. In other words, or rather than the discussion, for the listening supportive factor. Today, 26th of September, our weekly mindfulness session. And in this session, for the listening supportive factor, we have taken a discourse called Ratha Vinita Sutta. We call it Relay Chariot Discourse. And in that discourse, if we just recollect what we have been discussing so far, it's a discussion between two monks, two great arahants. The two great arahants involved are Venerable Punnamanthaniputta and Venerable Sariputta. So, Venerable Punnamanthaniputta is of great character, so heard by Venerable Sariputta. His disciples were telling the Blessed One that this particular monk is modest, is very contented, is a secluded, unentangled, aroused persistence is there, and he's a virtuous, he's a concentrated, he has discernment and release, and he has the release, and he has the knowledge and vision of release. And not only that, he has those 10 qualities. Whenever he talks and whenever his disciples go and speak to him, he is advising and encouraging and inspiring his disciples as well to do the same thing. So Venerable Sariputta heard that these qualities and he is such a great person. So he took all his trouble when he came to see Buddha just to go and see this particular monk. And then after following him, they got into conversation. So in the conversation, Venerable Sariputta is asking Venerable Punnamanthaniputta, are you living the whole life for the purity in terms of virtue? And like that, he's asking 7 questions. Whether the holy life is for purity in terms of concentration or purity in terms of mind, whether it's purity in terms of view, whether it's purity in terms of overcoming perplexity, whether it's purity in terms of knowledge and vision of what is and what is not the path, or whether it is for the knowledge and vision of the way, or whether it is for the knowledge and vision itself. And the answer for each of these questions from Venerable Punnamanthaniputta is no, my friend, no, my friend, no, my friend, continuously. And then Venerable Sariputta asked, then why are you living this holy life? Then he tells Venerable Sariputta, the purpose of holy life is to nirvana, is to go for nirvana. And he's using some explanation for the nirvana. What he says is, it is for the total unbinding through lack of clinging. So far as we have clinging, we are bound to form, we are bound to sensation, we are bound to, in other words, feeling, we are bound to perceptions, we are bound to mental volitions, we are bound to consciousness. In other words, we can simply say in general terms, we are bound to our physical and mental processes. And if we are not bound to any of those things, then we don't have clinging to any factors in the physical and mental process. So the Blessed, after saying that, Venerable Sariputta is asking again the same 7 questions. Whether the total unbinding is virtue, whether the total unbinding is the mind, whether the total unbinding is the purity of view, or whether the total unbinding is the perplexity, overcoming of perplexity, or whether it's knowledge and vision of what is and what is not the path, or whether it is the vision of the way, or whether it is knowledge and vision of something else. Again, he says, no, it is not so. You can't say any of these things taken in isolation. as the way or as nirvana. If you say any of these things in isolation as nirvana, as nirvana, then in all these instances there is some sort of clinging. So therefore you can't take them in isolation, but they help each other. So one leads to the other, and he is giving a simile of relay chariot. A king goes from one town to the other using one cart, and then the second cart for the third city, and the fourth cart from the third, and so on. He goes for his destination using 7 carts, and you can't say the whole journey was done by one cart or by the last cart or the first cart. Each cart has completed some part of the path. So therefore, in the same way, purity in terms of virtue is leading to purity in terms of view, and then purity in terms of virtue is leading to purity in terms of mind, and then it leads to view, and so on and so forth. So today we are going to discuss the purity in terms of view. We have already completed purity in terms of virtue. We have completed purity in terms of mind. So when you are virtuous, only thing is you don't try to be 100% perfect of your virtues, but you try and see when you practice whether your mind is developing, whether you can maintain your attention to whatever the object that comes, whether you can be mindful without being unnecessarily confused, and whether you are appreciating the fact that you are getting mindful. So when that happens, that can be done only when your virtue is complete. So the certificate that your virtue is complete is the fact that you are being more and more mindful in the objects that comes before you. So when your mind is getting purified, in other words, when you are able to be mindful for the object that comes your way, and that is generally purifying, that is leading to purify your view, right? So last time we discussed this a little bit by mentioning that purification of view starts with the fact that you understand that you have a wrong view so far as something is concerned. In other words, when you are practicing, say for example, you aren't able to have your attention to your walking process, or you aren't able to have your attention to your breath. It goes to thoughts, or it may go to aches and pains in your body, or it may go to sounds. Then you will be worrying that you aren't able to be that you aren't able to maintain your attention to the object, your attention to the walking, or to the respiration, or to upper body. So then the teacher will tell you mindfulness means just being aware of what comes your way, and then you understand what you are trying to, your view, your way of looking at practice is to get concentrated on the object, but instead the real practice is to be aware. So it's a difference between whether you will have to maintain your attention to the object, or whether you'll have to maintain attention to whatever the object that comes your way. So usually when we start, we are of the view that it should be for the object, main object, right? But after explaining that it is not so, and you will be able to understand, but your mind will not straight away change. Your mind will still be trying to get your attention to the main object. But you now understand that your mind is going there understand that you have a wrong way of wrong attitude, wrong way of looking at the whole thing. So just understanding of that fact itself is the start of the purification. In other words, beginning of purification of view is knowing that you have a wrong view, knowing that you have a wrong resolve, knowing that you have wrong speech, knowing that you have wrong action, knowing that you have wrong livelihood, and accepting the fact that these things are wrong in itself is the purification of your view. So when the view gets purified in this manner, one may think why this purification of view is so important. I have just taken just one example from the practice. But if you see in general, the society, we have various types of spiritual practices. And it was not different during Buddha's time. Even during Buddha's time, it was the same story. But Buddha had to fight with all these views. So the people who are coming to Buddha is from those practices, because people like today, they are in search of the truth. So they don't know what the truth is. So they go from one teacher to the other, and from that teacher to another, and so on. So when you go to different teachers may have different viewpoints to teach, right? So when your attention is getting more and more towards mindfulness, when your attention gets more and more towards the practice, this view that you have had from the past practices will come and disturb you, will come and bother you. So during Buddha's time, there were 6 sectarian teachers like that. And their names are, one is Purna Kassapa, and there was another person called Makkali Gosala. There was another one called Ajita Kesakambali. There was one by the name of Pahuda Kachayana. There was one named Niganta Nathaputta, and there was one called Sanjay Bellatiputta. And these ascetics had different viewpoints about practices and about the truth, about the world, and about existence of living beings and human beings. So based on their practices, they have been teaching different things to their disciples. So when these disciples come and see Buddha and get on with the practice, and what they had learned from the other teachers started bothering them. So Purna Kassapa, he was a person who was teaching that the world is eternal and it is finite. World as well as self is finite. So therefore, there is no result from doing good and bad things. There is no result from karma. Everything is eternal. Of course, when you die from here, you will go to another life. So it's the same person that goes on, and it will go for such a long time. So you have got nothing to worry, either to do good things or bad things. It keeps going, and he is saying this not just for the argument's sake. He's practicing so well. After practicing so well, he has identified himself with his strong practice, and from his practice, he is able to see so many previous lives. So by seeing the previous lives, he identifies himself that in each and every life he is existing. So he comes into blocked mentality that I have been living for such a long time. So that is what is happening for everybody, and there is no end to it. So it keeps going. So Buddha had to fight these things. Buddha had to show why it is not so. And similarly, Makkali Gosala is also someone who did not believe the theory of karma or the possibility of free will. He developed the theory known as Samsara Visuddhi, based on fate and destiny. So it is someone's fate and destiny, and based on that, you will be purified. There is no any special practice that is necessary. It is not necessary for you to really do any practice. So it will happen by itself, and that was his theory. Similarly, Ajita Kesa Kambali, he was the worst culprit. He advocated 10 points, giving 10 wrong views to the practitioners. He was strongly advocating that there is no life after death. He denied the existence of an afterlife and claimed that when someone dies, the four elements will just return to external sources of earth, water, fire, air, and the mental faculties will just pass on to the space, and that's all what happens, and nothing else after that. And he also said no merit of performing any good action or no evil in performing any bad. So he tenfold wrong view. We call it dasa vastuka michya ditti. There is no merit in almsgiving. There is no merit in large offerings. There is no merit in small offerings. There are no results from good or bad actions. There is no special person called mother. There is no special person called father. There is no this world. There is no other world. There is no instantaneous birth. There are no ascetics who develop special powers through meditation and declare that the presence of other worlds. So he was very strongly contesting these things, and there were a lot of followers for him. And there are a lot of Buddha's practitioners were from this guy. So Buddha had to show that there are people who have developed their mind, and when the mind is getting developed, this last one, there are no ascetics who develop special powers through meditation, really hindered their practice. So therefore, the Blessed One had to take all the trouble to clear their faith. Similarly, Kakudakachayana was advocating that the whole universe and its constituents are made from 7 eternal bodies. And the 7 eternal bodies are just earth, water, fire, air, pleasure, pain, and the soul. So instead of saying 5 aggregates in Buddhism, we call it physical and mental process. So where we say form, feelings, perception, mental volition, and consciousness. Now here they are but somewhat similar, but they are very limited. They are giving the 4 elements, and they simply say pain, sukha, pleasurable and unpleasurable pain, and then they say there is something called soul, which is not that Buddha has experienced. Soul means there is some energy that you have control over. But in Buddha's practice, in our practice, we are simply testing that. So when these people come and practice with the Buddha, they come out with this view that there is a soul and they have a control over. And all these guys are giving these viewpoints, their ideas, because they identify themselves with those ideas. So the strong view that they have is this identification of self in whatever they say. Although they are not directly saying that the soul is there, what actually plays a part in their teaching, in their viewpoint, is the identification of self with whatever they say. And Nigantanatha Putta, he was slightly different, bit close to Buddha's teaching, but he was paying too much emphasis on being virtuous. He believed in moral behavior so much, and he wanted people to be 100% virtuous. And even when you walk, you will have to wipe the place before you walk. So that was going to extreme. And they are not supposed to eat anything dug from the earth because it kills animals. So like that, he was going to extreme moral behavior. And Buddha did not recommend extreme moral behavior. He said moral behavior is necessary only to the purification of the mind, only to get concentrated in the object. So if you get your concentration, if you are able to be mindful, then your virtue is more than enough to go to the next stage. So Sanjay Bellatti Buddha, the last one, he was known as the eel wriggler. So he did not take any firm stance on anything. He just tried to slither and get away with whatever that comes with in his way. And he introduced that as a theory of not facing anything directly. So this viewpoint really starts disturbing you when the mind is developing. In the last section, when the purity of virtue is happening, we test the purity of virtue from the fact whether your mind is getting absorbed into the object, or whether you are able to be mindful with the object. So when that happens, it gives you some sort of a pleasure. You take your attention away from your sensual world, and you take your attention away from other, other frictional thoughts, and you will be at ease. So when you are at ease, you feel so much bliss. So when you feel so much bliss, and if you have come from a strong view that self is there, maybe from any of these ascetic or from any other practice, and if you come with the view that that the soul is there or the self is there, you will identify this bliss as you, and you will forget mindfulness, and you will get absorbed into the that pleasurable feeling, that pleasurable mental quality that you are developing. So when you get absorbed into that, and that becomes an obsession, and you will love to come and practice and get absorbed into that. And that is the main hurdle, that is the main challenge Buddha was facing when he was training his disciples, because all his disciples are very strong practitioners. They haven't started meditating with Buddha in this life. They had practiced for such a long time in the samsara. During the samsara, in the whole existence, what they have been practicing is this concentration or the transcendental meditation. So in transcendental meditation, what happens is you suppress the hindrances. You suppress the hindrances to achieve the ultimate goal. The hindrances to achieve the ultimate goal, as we know, sense pleasure, ill will, sloth and torpor, and anxiety and worry, and the skeptical doubts. So these things are suppressed, and when your practice is developing, your practice will develop in that manner, in the way that you will suppress these things. But when it is happening, when it is happening, you will feel that your mind is being purified now, because you don't have any bad thoughts coming. You are not sleepy, and you are 100% with the object, and you feel that you have gone to the final destination. So what Buddha says is, that's fine, but when you get absorbed into that pleasant feeling, the Blessed One says, you just be mindful of that as well. You just observe that as well. You just label that as well. So if you are in a blissful feeling, you sit and just enjoy that. And at the same time, not that you enjoy that, you sit and observe that, and you label that you are in pleasurable feeling or that you are in blissful feeling. When you label it, when you give you a certificate yourself that you are in that particular point, then what happens is you gradually introduce awareness to the state that you are in that particular point in time, in that particular place of yourself. So when you introduce mindfulness in that manner gradually to that state, what happens is that absorption into the pleasurable feeling gets shattered. So when it gets shattered, you are opening yourself into the what you call hindrances that had been suppressed all this time. It had been suppressed by the absorption into the pleasurable feeling, and you are now observing this pleasurable feeling. When you are mindful for the pleasurable feeling, you become more and more aware of the pleasurable feeling. When you become aware of the pleasurable feeling, what was underneath the pleasurable feeling, what had been hidden by the pleasurable feeling, comes to the surface. So when you practice, there will have a point where so much of uncontrollable sense pleasure will arise, and uncontrollable ill will arise, uncontrollable sleepiness may arise, uncontrollable worries and tension about future, anxiety about future will arise, and uncontrollable doubts about the practice, doubts about Buddha, doubts about the teaching, doubts about the teacher, doubts about monks, doubt about yourself. All these things will arise. So if these things are arising, what it simply says is that you're on the right path. Only thing that has got to change is the fact that you should not identify yourself either with the pleasurable feeling or with these things that are happening, or this unexpected so-called turbulence that you are seeing. Don't identify with that as well. And although I say like that, most of the time when you practice and you feel bad because our mind wants some identification, some self-identification somewhere, and that is called the view. So therefore, the Blessed One says, if you are in pleasurable feeling, just be aware of that. And when you become aware of that, all these hindrances will come up as turbulent storms and energy waves and thoughts and whatnot, and just be aware of that as well. So to change from being concentrated and absorbed into the pleasurable feeling, or to change the view of getting absorbed to the view of being mindful, is a hell of a task. For that, you will have to keep practicing, you will have to keep providing reports, you will have to keep making mistakes, and you will have to keep discussing. And then gradually, you will see from your own practice, when you are mindful for these things, and they are not as strong as you think. They become strong only when you identify yourself with them. When you don't identify yourself with them, and if you just observe them as something that is happening In a third party, their strength gradually loses. Not that those things are disappearing. You may feel initially that they are disappearing, but actually what happens is they are not disappearing. You simply move away from the identification with them. So once that happens, what happens there is, because of the purity of your development of the mind or purity of the mind, now you are gradually turning it into for the purification of the view. So without the purification in the mind, without getting absorbed, without getting without the skill of being with the object, you will not be able to go to the next step. So since you have some skill of being with the object, and when you keep on practicing, then you will come out with this wrong view that you have to identify yourself with whatever is happening in your practice. Then the teacher is gradually showing that this is what is going on. So what you will have to simply do is just become aware of them. Just observe them as well. So when you observe them, they lose their strength. So therefore, when you do that, initially what happens is you see the wrong view. You see that your mind is still going towards, your mind is still trying to identify yourself with these hindrances that are appearing, or to put it in simple terms, with the thoughts that are appearing. But over time, you practice and you discuss, you will be reminded yourself that I will have to be more mindful. I will have to be just be aware. I will have to just be attentive only, not make stories about it, not identify myself with them. So then that identification of wrong view will gradually turn into the right view. Right view means anything happens, everything happens, you are simply an observer, like a third umpire. The third umpire, what he simply does is he simply keeps recording, right? He doesn't bother who is batting, who is bowling, who is taking the catch, whether it's a wicket or whether it's a 4 or whether it's a 6. He simply observes, right? So therefore, you become a camera, you become a third umpire of yourself, of your physical processes, of your mental processes, no matter whether it's pleasant, no matter whether it's unpleasant, no matter whether it's neither pleasant nor unpleasant. You simply maintain your awareness. So when you maintain your awareness, you change your view from being a concentrated meditator to an insight meditator. In concentrated meditation or in transcendental meditation, there is no insight. They just enjoy the pleasure that comes from the practice. But whereas in Vipassana, in insight, you go into the pleasure. You go into the pleasure and see what is underneath. And when what is underneath is coming up, you simply face that music as well and see to what extent they attack you. You see to what extent they affect you. And initially they will affect because they are strong mental concomitants. They are strong mental viewpoints. But Buddha is much more stronger, much more smarter with his finding of awareness, of mindfulness, not just mindfulness, to keep the mindfulness to the fore. That is his staging. You keep the mindfulness to the fore. When you keep the mindfulness to the fore, no matter what comes, you simply start labeling it. You simply start naming it. You simply start observing it. So when you observe it, it just becomes somebody else's. When it is somebody else's, you simply see only. You don't go and poke your fingers in. So this is the technique. This is the teaching that Buddha is taking forward from those who are concentrated. When Buddha was born, there are a few things that he checked. He wanted to see whether there is right mother for him to be born. He wanted to see the place where he will be born. He wanted to see the time he will be born. And there is something called Pasmaha Belum. I don't remember all five. So when he checked where he will be born, when he checked the time that he will be born, these are the things he checked. He checked in that particular place wherever he will be born, whether there are people at least practicing and have developed their mind to transcendental situation or to concentrated situation. So when there are people of that caliber, then it is easy for him to teach. Otherwise, if he is born into a place where he has got to start from the scratch, then it's going to be a hell of a task. But he checked whether there are people interested in searching the truth. And then the only thing he had to do was just to get rid of that wrong view they have so far as the concentration is concerned. So this is why the famous story, the ascetic Asita, when Buddha was, I think, few days old, he was shown to ascetic Asita, who was a very strong advisor of the king. And ascetic Asita said, this particular prince will, no, he smiled initially and then he started crying. Then king asked, why are these two different emotions? Then he said, this particular prince is definitely going to find the truth and tell the truth to the world. And then he asked, well, that's a good thing. So the king was happy. And then he asked, why the hell you cried? Then he said, when he's teaching the world, I will not be here and I am dead and gone. And I will be in a situation or in a state where even if I want to come and listen to him, I am unable because I have developed my concentration to such an extent. I have identified myself to such an extent. Even if I want, I am unable to come out of that and listen to him. See the danger. See the danger that we may fall into if we practice only concentration. If we practice only transcendental, we will get absorbed into very, very strong self-identification. And even if you want, you aren't able. So this particular person has developed his mind to such an extent to see that he is going to such a place and he is not able to come as well. So therefore, when the Buddha was born, he checked whether there are serious people like that. So when those people are there, and if they are not dead, then Buddha is having the ability just to show that little point that they are missing, which is the absorption. Right? So therefore, this is why when I teach, always I mention that our purpose of practicing mindfulness is not to get concentrated. It's not to maintain our attention just to one object. It's not to just get absorbed. Our job in the practice is to maintain awareness, no matter what happens. So when you maintain awareness, you simply purify your view of self-identification with the practice itself. And that takes you a long, long way. So therefore, with that purification, concentration that you may develop turns into insight. So when you develop when you turn concentration into inside, you will have also a concentration, but it is not with one object. You will be able to be concentrated in any object that comes your way. So that's a better skill. That's a real soldier. Those who win in shooting competitions, they are not soldiers. They can shoot the target. They can shoot the bullseye, but they can't go to war. They can't shoot at each and every enemy that comes their way. But the soldiers are not like that. They can just shoot anything. So that is what the Buddha is teaching. Let any object come your way, you just be mindful of that. So you will have, therefore, continuing momentary mindfulness, momentary concentration. And that is what the life is. The life is not having just one thing to deal with. Life is having so many billion things. So if you can be observant of those things, you will have a wonderful life. So this is the teaching of the Buddha. And in this teaching, there isn't absolutely any mistake. It is simply just the practice and the experience. So therefore, Buddha is the only person who has seen this ability in the humankind. And he used that energy that human beings are having and converting it into the highest pleasure that anyone will be able to enjoy. So therefore, he says, this is very, very, very rare. So if you miss this opportunity to understand this truth and to practice this truth, we will keep being born in the samsara, and we will continue to die. And with that birth and death, we will continue to suffer. So with that, hope you understand how significant the purification stages are and where the Buddha is taking us, just from the simple virtue to the inside. So with that, I'm going to conclude my talk here and hope you have understood a little bit of what I said so far as your own practice is concerned. So blessings of the Triple Gem to all of you, and be happy and be mindful. Now with that, we can go for the discussion if you have any points to discuss.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
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 I'm so sick a little bit. We don't have any questions from Brisbane.
You don't have any questions. Tanuka?
No questions from me today, though, sir. Thank you.
No questions, right. But just give me a second. This fellow was trying to call me so many times, and I said just to join the session. He is not joining the session. In the session, anyway, if he doesn't, that's it. Okay, so if there are no questions, we can wind up. Thank you very much for the participation. So we will chant the stanzas and transfer merit to whoever who is able to share this merit. So over to you.